So today we have Bridgewater's own Ryan Morgan sitting down with us for a little interview. How are you today, Ryan?
Very good, very good. Very honored to be here and to be doing this today.
We're happy to have you, man. So you've been out of Bridgewater for quite some time now, since about 2012, if I'm not mistaken. How does it feel to be coming back and, finally getting a chance to step into the ring and where you're from, man?
It's very exciting. I moved out to Alberta in September 2012 to wrestle at Lance Storm Wrestling Academy, and wrestled out in Alberta, BC, and Ontario way for a number of years. And it's very exciting to finally be able to make my way back home. Nova Scotia was on that bucket list to finally make my way back, and just the way the world is nowadays, it sent me back in home after all this time. So to be able to come back, see friends and family, and then also get to be back in the ring and wrestling is very exciting.
Awesome. So what was it like? What was it like training with Lance Storm? I mean, he's quite the professional. I know he's quite a skilled man. How was it like stepping into the ring with him and having him show you the ropes and kind of give you a good idea of how it works?
Very easy. Like you said, Lance is a top professional. Obviously, with his school, he's big on the wrestling aspect of it instead of the character and promo side of it. So with Lance, very easy to work with. Took it serious though. So if you were good, he told you. If you weren't, he let you know, and also showed you how to improve on things like that too. For training, he gave you a lot of time. So we would do Monday through Fridays, typically 3-4 hour days. And yeah, from everything from the basics to the bumping, to putting on full length matches, to even being able to put full length matches on with him at the school as well. It was very good. And when you're doing wrestling school, you're going to have, lower training guys, middle, high end guys. You're going to have some former pro wrestlers in there. You're going to have guys who have been doing it for a while. So just a whole crew in there of different levels. So you always got to work with different talent, and you learned a lot from it.
So it sounds like there was a lot of opportunity to gain some really genuinely meaningful experience while you were out there training.
Oh yeah, 100%. I always say sometimes you learned more from the guys who maybe weren't, say, the best in the class, because it makes you have to carry the match, get them over, and then when you're stepping in there with somebody who maybe has a lot more experience than you, you're learning way more from them as well. So no matter who you're in the ring with, you should always be learning from anyone you step in there with, whether they're the best or if they're not.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it, honestly. So how long was it that you were training under Lance Storm?
I trained under Lance for 3 months. So the school ran for 3 months. And then after that, basically, he did evaluations with you. So kind of let you know where you were. He kind of ranked it bottom class, middle class, top class, and then gave you advice on what you should do. And basically, the advice is you got to go and get booked. You can sit there and train for 3, 4, 5 months to a year, but you're really not going to be able to put that all into perception until you actually get out there and start wrestling. And for me, he kind of had me around the lower end, middle end. As he said, he goes, I hope one day the light just finally goes off and you can kind of stay up there. But he goes, you won't know until really you go get booked in. That's all you could do is finally go get bookings, actually get in the ring and start wrestling around to see what you can do with it.
It sounds like realistic expectations and where you stand were definitely a strong point for working with him. When you finally got out, how long would you say you wrestled up there for?
Well, when I finally graduated from Lance's, I actually took 7 months to actually make my pro debut. So I felt like I wasn't ready yet. I mean, I could have jumped right out there instantly and start wrestling around, but I just didn't have the confidence. Training class went the way I expected it towards the end, but I wasn't happy. But after I got out of Lance's, I waited 7 months before I actually turned pro. I was training around in some other companies at the time that would let me get in there until I was ready. And made my pro debut in July of 2013, and wrestled right up until 2020.
Okay. And what would you say are some notable matches you had out there? Like, what do you feel gave you the most experience?
Uh, my pro debut, which has never seen the light of day for many reasons. But I'd probably say my pro debut was pretty important. When I actually got booked, I got booked for a company named Real Canadian Wrestling (RCW), owned by Steven Eshachuk. And when I reached out to him to get booked, he had said, bring your gear down, and we'll see what we can do for you. So when I actually got down there, Davey Boy Smith Jr., David Hart Smith, British Bulldog son, was there on the show that night. And basically, he was there. Steven said, "You're going to get in the ring with him for the next 4 hours, and we'll see how it goes." And I got in there with Davey Boy for 4 hours. And after the training was over, Steven came up and said, "Is he ready to go?" And Davey was like, "Yeah, he's ready to go." So even though that wasn't a match, that was very important for me, to be in there with him after 7 months away from Lance's, and to be able to do my pro debut. Now the match didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to. I was working with a guy who'd been wrestling for 20 years, but he was kind of at that point in his career where he was like 20 years of, I'm going to do what I want. And it didn't go the way I wanted it to, but everything else I took away from that night meant the world to me, and I still remember that night fondly. And I'd say probably one of the most important nights / matches I ever had. Notable matches, there was I was wrestling a tag team for about a year and a half, 2 years, with a guy named Big Shot Bucky Briggs, and we were pursuing the RCW tag team titles for a good time. And we were wrestling most nights a team called the 8-Bit Bastards of Bryton Addams and Scott Lee Crew. And those were matches that started off 10 minutes, worked their way to 15, 20, 25-minute co-main event matches eventually over the next year. And I learned so much from those guys. They weren't really big on training us before the matches or outside, but when we got in that ring, these guys were good. And you felt like even when you're putting a match on in front of the crowd, you're learning so much at that time as well. So the 8-Bit Bastards were very, very gracious in the ring, and some of the ones that stand out to me.
So you mentioned that that not a lot of training within the ring prior to setting foot in that match. Is there a lot of like anxiety that comes with that? Like you don't feel like you're going to get in there and put on your best, or is it knowing that they're as skilled as they are kind of puts you at ease when you're in a situation like that?
Yeah, for me, I mean, the anxiety definitely before I made my pro debut was there. Like my evaluation at Lance's was not exactly the way I wanted it to be. So I think the anxiety and the pressure of when you're going to finally do it sought in and kept me out of the ring for a while. But I'll be honest, once I finally broke through that and made that pro debut, I mean, I started to wrestle 2-3 times a month after that. And I never felt any anxiety after that. I mean, were they always the greatest matches? No. Did I go out there and have some matches that just blew my mind? I was like, wow, I can't believe I just did that. Yeah, of course. But for anxiety, no. Once I was able to get past that time in between Lance's and my pro debut, the anxiety of pro wrestling just disappeared. Every night I was showing up to shows and I was excited to be there in the ring. I was excited with who I was in the locker room with, and took it for everything it was. So yeah, anxiety is real. I know it follows a lot of wrestlers, even though they've been wrestling for a number of years. Fortunately for me, once I was able to break that barrier and have my first match, that didn't exist anymore in my world.
So for you, what would you say? Because I think we all as wrestling fans kind of have that aha moment where we're like, I have to get into this business in some way, shape, or form, and kind of try my hand at it. What was that moment for you? Because for me, it's like growing up as a kid, you see these larger than life figures on TV throwing each other around, and you watch Stone Cold Steve Austin walk through the Titantron, and he's just in your face. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what was that moment for you where you're like, this is what I got to do, man? Because this has to be my life.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. That was it. As a
Yep.
kid in 1996, watching the bald man with the goatee and black vest, black trunks, and black boots, literally kicking ass and not caring, how could that not captivate your imagination?
Yeah.
And it might be cliche that everyone says Stone Cold was their favorite wrestler, but Stone Cold literally was everyone's favorite wrestler. And
How couldn't you like him?
exactly. And we all wanted to go to school and, maybe stun our friends and flip our teacher off, which is super inappropriate and not okay. um, but Stone Cold Steve Austin, that, made me dream. You go to bed after and you dream and you go, I want to do that. And you're 6 or 7 at the time. So it's like, you're not thinking about how that's a reality. But Stone Cold Steve Austin was huge. Inspiration. I would say CM Punk was a huge influence in my life as I start to get into my teen years. Punk, I first saw wrestle in 2003 in Ring of Honor. And for me, he was just so odd. I mean, this guy with this long, greasy hair and skinny body and tattoos and these basketball shorts with a Pepsi logo on it. And just everything he was saying just took me away. And it was like, that was the moment where I was like, all right, I want to be a professional wrestler. I dreamt about it. Now I know I want to be it. And then Brian Danielson, the son, also watched around that time in Ring of Honor. I was just blown away with how good he was. Because you're used to watching WWE growing up, so you're not exactly used to long matches. And when you did watch maybe a few main events that were long matches, you were like, oh man, this is maybe a little brutal to sit through because you're used to 10 minutes maybe. And with Brian, he was going out there and doing these 20, 30, 40-hour minute matches. And it made me appreciate more of what wrestling is, want to understand it, want to learn it more. And I looked at him and said, if I'm going to do it, I want to be the best at it. And those 3 guys always stick out to me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Especially CM Punk. The way that man talks is he knows his way around a mic, man. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, something from Lance's I felt like I never took away from it was the promo and character aspect of it. But watching guys like CM Punk, watching guys like Bryan Danielson, who in ROH was not the flashiest guy on the mic and look-wise, but when he finally found his way in the WWE, I mean, he captivated everyone as well. The yes movement, the way he talked, and with things like that, it's you sit back and you watch those kinds of guys. It's like, so years ago they didn't have the confidence to ever do anything like that, but now here they are 10 years later and they are, and you're just like, wow. Like if you just watch the way they control a mic, control a crowd, eventually you're not feeling like you're the awkward one standing in the ring while everyone's watching you. You're going to break out of that mindset and you're going to be the one captivating and controlling the crowd. And guys like CM Punk definitely taught me, I think, how to work a crowd and how to engage emotion out of people, which is very important in pro wrestling.
Absolutely. So I guess it's time to touch on the elephant in the room a little bit. It's been many a year since you've been to Bridgewater, and you haven't ever wrestled there before that I know of. Anyway, what's it like to finally make that homecoming? How are you feeling about coming back and getting to do what you love in the place you're from?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. I've never been back. I never got to wrestle Nova Scotia. Certainly never got to wrestle in my hometown. So when the opportunity came up, Epic Pro Wrestling was something I heard about back in late 2021. I heard some rumblings about it, and I was being kept updated. And it's the wrestling business. You don't just jump in and go, oh yeah, this is gonna be the greatest thing ever. You got to see if things are actually going to play out. And I didn't want to get myself too excited and jazzed up, but when 2022 start rolling in, I realized, okay, like this is actually going to happen. The first thing was like, I'm going to be home. Like I'm going to be home, my family, my coworkers, friends, people I haven't seen in a while, people I haven't met ever. Bridgewater's dying for this. They're dying for pro wrestling. And I was presented an opportunity to come back home and do this. And this is on my bucket list. I always wanted to get back home and wrestle. I believe COVID was a blessing because it drove me to come back home, even though I miss Alberta every single day of my life. And I really feel like, that's where I grew up. To come back home and have this opportunity is amazing. And Yeah, I use two words: overwhelming and homecoming. It really does feel like that. The overwhelming part of it's starting to phase out. I don't feel like that much anymore, but now as we start to see, as we're getting closer to the show, the homecoming part seems like it's going to be huge. People are excited, constantly getting messages, new friend requests on Facebook, people reaching out, people coming into my workplace, Gau's Home Hardware and Furniture, where we're selling the tickets, asking for pictures, asking for autographs, and just wanting to shoot the shit. People just wanting to talk and get to know Ryan the person, and that's exciting. But June 10th, they're going to get to see Ryan Morgan, what that's all about, and no one here knows what that is and who that is. And it's very exciting to get to do that and show everyone what I literally left Nova Scotia to go do. Now I get to come back and do it in front of everyone.
It really like sounds to me as if it's basically just debuting all over again, getting out there and finally getting to show your hometown what you're all about and what you've been doing, and get to showcase everything you've learned over the last years in front of the people you love, the place you love, really.
Yeah, 100%. I'm debuting a new look, new gear. I'm not wearing the same stuff I did out west. I'm ditching the old finishers and stuff that I was learning on out in Alberta. I'm now going to actually use back home here. So it is like a debut. It's a new look, a new style. Um, I get to do it in front of people I've never got to do it in front of. So as new as this is going to be for me, it's going to be new for everyone else who's never seen it. So it gives me time to be able to adjust and refocus, but also at the same time try new things. And I'm very excited for that. There's pictures and videos of Ryan Morgan out west and around places, and you see the gear and stuff. But it's going to be all new. It's going to be a new look, new attitude. I think the attitude's always been there. I think it's just going to come out a little bit more. Of course, I'm happy. I'm excited. There's no doubt about it. But also at the same time, too, I want people to know that I'm one of the best too. And this guy who's never been in the maritime wrestling scene is now coming back. Who left is now coming back. And yeah, I want to insert my dominance, and I want other people in the scene to know that you're just not the best. There's someone else out there too. And it's exciting because no one knows who Ryan Morgan is. And I know it, and I can see it, and I can feel it. Whether that's from other companies, or whether that's fans, or whether that's other wrestlers out there.
Absolutely, it's really not hard to see just from the look on your face, man. The excitement, that love for what's going to happen, it just shines right through, man. Absolutely, and it's good to see that you're as excited as I am about it too, because it's going to be a pretty decent card, I would say. You're on there with Zach Gowen, Robbie McAllister. It's going to be a wild show, I think.
Oh yeah, super excited to work with Zach. I don't know if I'm actually going to be in the ring with them, but I mean, just the fact of being in the locker room with them. Obviously, I watched Zach growing up in the WWE. I was a huge fan of his underrated Juggalo Championship Wrestling reign when he was wrestling for the Insane Clown Posse there for a bit. I thought that was some of his best work, and now what he's done in being able to share his story, go to schools, go to facilities and talk and promote what he is, and this happy mindset and being able to follow your dreams. Everything he's doing has been great. And to be able to share a locker room with him on June 10th and 11th is going to be very exciting. Robbie McAllister, I mean, same thing. Watched him growing up as well. He's been on the maritime wrestling scene now for a while, and he's solid, all around solid guy. I got to meet him a few times before I went out to Alberta, so he was awesome as I got to see him as a fan. But now getting the chance to be in the locker room with him, I think is going to be even better. So it all comes back around. All comes back around.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that show is going to be June 10th at the exhibition in Bridgewater, the main building. So save the date for that one. It's going to be a wild show. Thanks for sitting down with us today, Ryan, and kind of giving us some insight, letting us know how you're feeling, and just having a chat, really.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I've been doing a a lot of interviews and just chatting with a lot of people about the show. So it's good. I love this stuff. I really do. It's great to promote the show. It's great to be able to tell my story. One of the things I think I was afraid of most coming back home is not anyone knowing who Ryan Morgan is. And as people still don't, but they get a little insight. June 10th and 11th is when everyone's really going to be able to see who he is, what he's about. And no, it's just great to be able to do this kind of stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm looking forward to you finally getting that chance to show Bridgewater what you're all about, man. Thanks again for sitting down with us.
I appreciate it. Anytime.